Hello, this is Four Eyes again. Yes, it is Uncle Four Eyes. I'm here to hopefully make a short video on just how I've made my comic book through the printing process, and uh, and in doing so, I'm just going to give you like a quick rundown. This is not going to be a very comprehensive tutorial, but a tutorial nonetheless. I use the website Mixam, I believe is how you would say it, and yeah, the site is great. I like the way you can interact with your files and everything throughout the process. Yeah, and they're great at communicating with you and everything. I think the prices are pretty affordable, and the quality is pretty good too as well. As much as you put into it, I think money wise, you get back in that said quality. I only can do so much on my end, so for even the little amount of money that I've spent on it, I feel like I've gotten a pretty good product. So this is just going to show. I'm going to show you the comic book printing section. There's all these other things you can do: booklets, you can do posters, and lots of different things. Anything you can think about printing, you can make on this site. But since this is a comic book channel, for the most part, I'm just going to show you just kind of the basics of just how this is even laid out. And again, I'm not the first person to talk about this site, but yeah, if you ever see my comic and wonder, well, how did he make that comic specifically? It's from this site. Yeah, so you're going to have just this list of stuff, and it's as simple as just typing things in, selecting whatever, and like it gets to the point where you can see like what size of the book you even want to print at. So like of course, you have your U.S. standard, 6.69 inches by 10.24 inches. Then you even have your UK standard, your manga standard, which is pretty cool. Silver Age, even Golden Age. Like you've got quite a bit of variety and options for comic book based stuff, specifically. And then you've got even like digests, or if you want just based off of like letter paper size. Or this is really cool. If you know A4 or A5, and that's how no matter where you come from in your background, something like that will stick out to you and go, yeah, that's what I want. I make manga. I'll just stick with the manga standard. Yeah, so that's fun. You can do grayscale color for the interior. You've got hard covers. You got paperback, of course. You can select how much you want quantity-wise. And as you're doing this, the whole time, this will change here over on this right side, the price and shipping stuff. So like the date usually will stay the same, but let's just say we want 1,000 instead of 100. It went from being about 100 something, and it's taking quite some time. Yeah, so it went from about 100 something to about 600 something. It even tells you what they're going to print it on. Like, this must be a big, what do you call it? Like a big quantity printer, because I've not seen this name before. It's going to be offset printing. Yeah, and so it jumps up quite a bit at just adding, 4 digits worth of printing. But say you just want 10. $12. That's pretty, of course, granted with all the selections, like that's only 8 pages, but that's a pretty affordable thing if you want just 10 8-page comics. Again, it really depends on what you need it for. So I'll show you in a second what my settings and stuff were to achieve the price and everything that I got for that. But yeah, even the paper type, like satin, gloss, uncoated. I use uncoated so that if I want to draw in like the back pages or something, like sign them or just give you a cool little sketch in the back, I like uncoated because it's not going to impact using a pencil, a pen, whatever. I don't have to specifically use like a Sharpie or some other permanent marker. The paperweight's kind of interesting too, because you can get a real floppy copy of your comic, classic floppy copy, and that even will change the price. So as you see, like, it's actually $1 more for 50-pound text, which is kind of odd that I didn't even notice that. Like, they must really like that you stay within the 60 to 70 to 80-pound range, because even at 100 pounds it's $33, but then at 50 it's 33 and 50 cents. It's like, wow, okay, so you're spending the most money on the lightest paper. Now, there might be a good reason for that. I don't know. I'm just now realizing that, like, if you want that thinner paper, you're going to pay more apparently, and you're going to pay less somewhere in the middle. Like, I think because like 70 pounds or 60 pounds is kind of considered like the default weight that they would want to use in their printers, or just in the type of product that you're making, the medium that is comics, I guess, that's the best bang for your buck. Yeah, and so then you get your bindings, and I've yet to try any of these other than staple, but I find it really interesting that, like, for example, they just changed. By default, it changed because it needs to be at least 30 pages to do perfect bound, and I've yet to do perfect bound, but right off the bat, you can see also that there's only a max of 100 pages. Oops, sorry, this is not available, so you can't even do a 100-page staple. You can do, you can do 88 pages. That looks like it's the max at this point, based off these specific, of course, parameters. Like, maybe if you do, like, look at that, like 88 pages, 2,000, and that's still only 10 books. But, like, isn't that weird? I'm just playing around just now, and I'm noticing 88 pages of 50-pound jumps to 2,000, almost $3,000. But you come over here and you just change the text, the paperweight to 60, and it drops it all the way down to 140. So, yeah, like, I don't know. They could probably tell you why, but I couldn't. That's where I'm going to say I don't know how that makes any sense. I don't know if, I feel like they would do a better job of explaining why that's even a thing. But as you can see, that perfect bound, you can go up to 840. Granted, with the way things are selected, this is the one downside I can think of is you can't just straight up just make up whatever you want, apparently. Like, there is some boundaries or some logical steps that you need to make sure you do. So, like, over here, at least, they will, if you click this, hey, there you go, you did something to where you can now have whatever. So they recommend something if it doesn't work out, which is technically awesome, because then that means that, like, it's not really up to you necessarily to go, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. They can come over here and they can help you, and they can recommend maybe things like this would make it cheaper, obviously. It's the same quality, but lower prices. So, like, that negative I just said might just turn into a positive all of a sudden, because now that, something that you can't achieve, like, oops, you can eventually have, if you play around some of this stuff, they'll eventually give you a recommendation so that you can officially, get it to where you need it. And of course, you can contact them and figure out why. But yeah, I'd like to try some of these, like, the wire O and the spiral, the binding, color. And so depending on what you choose binding wise will change the page count. And then, of course, you have your covers. Your covers will be treated differently. So you have satin, gloss, and uncoated. Again, pictures to give you plenty of examples so that you feel, and descriptions. Again, this is very intuitive. I feel like I felt like I was pretty comfortable and pretty confident in doing what I was doing on this site before I could actually see a sample, for example, or just get it, just pay for it, and just just hope for the best, right? But I think they do a good job of representing that on your computer. Granted, again, printing is different, is going to look different than on a monitor. But yeah, I think it still does a great job of getting the point across on everything, to where I felt pretty confident that I was going to get a comic that was going to look pretty good. And yeah, and at the same time, I was like, if it's going to look funny, it's probably going to be on my end, because they talk to you and they go, you need to do this. The bleeding area is not right, or whatever. And you can just say, oh, I'm cool with that. And, and then you could have a jacked up comic, but at least they warned you. Like, they warned me on something like that too as well. And, so yeah, again, you get some really interesting stuff. Like, you can get matte laminated plus a spot UV. Just some crazy stuff. You can even add foil. Of course, it can only be with matte or gloss, but like, I've yet to do any of this stuff, but this sounds really interesting. Like, this would be really fun to try. And then, of course, bundling, which they explain it, it's basically shrink wrap it to better protect your money, basically. And then, of course, here's some other little things to kind of guide you through, like paperback. You can't do certain sizes in the paperback or the hardcover bindings. Like, this is like basically a little quick cheat sheet of, like, okay, I want stapled, and I'm gonna have a 40-page comic, and I'm gonna do 70-page. Like, they kind of do this all for you here down on the bottom, so that then you can then come back up here with a little bit more confidence and go, okay, yeah, like that's gonna work. And then, of course, they need to show you, like, examples of others, and say your art looks similar to this, and you're like, oh, okay, like, I can envision my stuff printed in a similar fashion. I mean, again, look at, like, how, like, those are cute little comics. Okay, so next I'll show you specifically my comic and how poorly I did it. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I did an okay job. I'm always learning, right? You're always learning. I wanted 25 copies, golden age size, 40 pages, portrait orientation, 70-pound paper, uncoated, and I wanted just grayscale, because I'm only doing grayscale inside throughout. And then my covers are 4 pages, which is default. It means it's going to be the front, back, inner cover, outer cover, or however you say the words, like outer front cover, outer back cover. Those are clearly the ones that you'll see when you look at before you flip it open. But yeah, here they clearly give you, like, how everything's laid out. You can display all your pages. This is great. This is very intuitive, very hands-on. Like, I feel pretty confident building a comic through this, even through this browser. Like, you feel like an expert building your comic through this interaction here. But yeah, like I said, that I wanted color on the outside. This is my cover. They even set it up to where you can see where you've got the green line, the blue line. They tell you, where gutter boxes are, the bleed box guideline, the trim box, and this is pretty accurate. When I got this, it did cut all this off. That green is actually what ended up being the comic. Now, I didn't mind it. It looks just fine. I didn't mind getting the cover cut a little bit money, or not getting the full cover, mainly probably because I was just not willing to resize it. But when you come into the page itself, I felt that I gave myself enough room here to where when it does get cut, it's not going to cut off anything important. Again, that's like a typical comic book, scenario. I'm not going to tell you how to build a comic book straight up in this necessarily. Later video, subscribe, like for that. I used something online to just duplicate the logo, and I wasn't worried about how this was going to get cut off necessarily. So I'm not too worried about how this looks clearly like a different dimension. Everything ended up looking just fine. This would be inconsequential to how everything else is, just purely based off of the fact that there's nothing important other than the logo being repeated, or the title of it. And another thing too is this page 2 and 3 are next to each other. So when you open it up and you've got your spine where it's where the two pages meet, the left side or the right side, this is how they do it, where they give you a bigger gap here, which is a really cool indicator. Like, you might not notice it at first or whatever, but I also I didn't know this was a thing, and it's been helping me make my chapter 2, where I can keep an eye on this is going to be these are both going to be, when you open it, are going to be right next to each other. So you'll see this on the left, you'll see this on the right, and as you organize things, that little gutter right here is smaller than the bigger one. So when you flip, you're flipping to this, and of course I'll show you the next coolest thing. But just on this alone, you can see how your spreads are going to be. So in the case of, where is it at? I just passed it. Here, you've got a double page spread, and you can see how it's going to look, essentially, or they're going to land on the same page as you load them, because of course this is when you're going to be you'll be uploading stuff, your files. I don't think I can upload anything because this is a completed project, so I can't even show you that. But just imagine there's a button here that says, upload files. Nothing too crazy. They convert them into PDFs for you. So mine are either TIFF or JPEG. And so yeah, they'll convert them. It'll take a minute, and then they just pop up. Literally, you'll add whatever file, and then say, as long as you label them. Again, this is not going to show it. These are all listed differently because they're scaled. But yeah, I just have my file named new cover, and I guess the fact that it was just said cover, it automatically put it here where this is going to be where your front cover is. So if you label just one, you don't even have to put page 1. I've noticed, you can just put 1, name the file 1. It will auto load into this page 1 right here for you. And so it does a lot of the work for you, and all you got to do is kind of tweak stuff. It's really cool. And last thing I want to show you, I'm not going to show you any of my sensitive information, of course. Again, this is a very laid back, simple, just down and dirty tutorial. You can also look it through this as a preview, like if it was I guess a virtual comic book, where you have the ability to pull the page across. Now, of course, you can do that with the preview as well, and it'll open up a second window, and then you can look through the window on that to where it'll be a bigger resolution and everything. Of course, this is just through this right here. So if you would quickly want to see how your comic is going to just look straight up, if you feel like this is all good, and again, it's simulating them cutting it and everything for you. So if something looks jank here, you can then just go right back to here and you start changing it out, click back on over here, check on it again, go, yep, that page was right, that worked. And yeah, and it's just fun to be able to flip the page and know that, like, this is the next best thing to obviously getting the physical copy. And now that I've done this, this is a pretty tried and true and like way to feel confident in that you will spend your money. Like, this isn't, I didn't execute this perfectly, but I was pretty impressed by how well this just comes off without, like, again, this is, I consider chapter 1 Babby's first comic book. 30-year-old man is a Babby. So yeah, that was one of those things where I will definitely in the future know what to do to tweak, to make this gutter look better, to where it's more seamless. Maybe in later, versions, like when I do a collected edition. Yeah, and it just felt like, oh wow, I can see where this is going. And when I finally got it, they shipped it. They still wrap them in plastic. They just don't shrink wrap it. It's just loose plastic. They came in pretty good condition and everything. I don't remember there being too much damage to anything, if not at all. But when I looked at this and then I saw the comic in hand, I officially was like sold on this company, this service, and then these the interaction, the site itself. I felt pretty confident, even though it was my first time making a comic book, like setting it up for print. Of course, you're always learning, but I still felt that, like, nitpicking aside, that I was pretty confident, and it actually makes for you as an independent comic creator, you feel more confident being like, wow, this is going to make me selling it, like my pitching to people or like wanting to give it to people, it's going to make that so much more seen or felt through, just like, hey, here's my comic. You don't have to be like, well, I printed it on. There's no excuse. I just printed it on whatever. Which there's nothing wrong with ash cans. You can sell an ash can all you want. I'm looking actually to want to make some. From the ground up, I want to print stuff. But if you don't have the means to just say, like, assemble it yourself, print it, and trim it, staple it all up, they'll do a pretty good job of, I think, of whatever. And especially if you have pretty low expectations, not on them but on your, just in general, they'll put that all away. You'll completely feel at peace, and it just fuels your inspiration, your creativity again. And I'm already now moving on to chapter 2, knowing that, like, and adding it to this website and interacting with this process with chapter 2, knowing that I have the confidence and, like, the know-how to do that. And I officially now can say, like, I want chapter 2 to come out. I want it to be printed out. I want this site to help me do it. And again, there's other sites. I'm only showing you the one option that I've had so far, that I've decided to go down, the route that I've went down. And I hope that this even gives you even the tiniest bit of help, just insight on anything and everything that has to do with making a comic. It seems intimidating, and it is, but with websites like this, tools like this, I think it's possible. Anyone can make that, your comic, anything your dream, whatever, you can make it right here. And if you want more videos like this, leave a like, subscribe, throw a comment at my way. I can, maybe fill in a gap that I missed here and there. And This is Four Eyes out.